eyes. "It is horrid not to have one's own way." The girl smiled again. "I really think you might tell me." How the child stuck to her point! "It is not my secret, but I will see what I can do, because I think both you and John ought to be told. And now I will say good-bye. Won't you wait and see Father?" June shook her head. "How can I get over to the other side? I will row you across." "Look," said June impulsively, "next time you are in London, come and see me. This is where I live. I generally have young people in the evening, but I should not tell your father that you are coming." The girl nodded. Watching her scull the skiff across, June thought, "She's awfully pretty and well made. I never thought Soames would have a daughter as pretty as this. She and John would make a lovely couple." The instinct to couple, starved within herself, was always at work in June. She stood watching Fleur row back. The girl took her hand off a scull to wave farewell, and June walked languidly on between the meadows and the river with an ache in her heart. Youth to youth, like the dragonflies chasing each other, and love like the sun warming them through and through. Her youth, so long ago, when Phil and she. And since, nothing. No one had been quite what she had wanted. And so she had missed it all. But what a coil was round those two young things, if they really were in love, as Holly would have it, as her father and Irene and Soames himself seemed to dread. What a coil, and what a barrier! And the itch for the future, the contempt, as it were, for what was overpast, which forms the active principle, moved in the heart of one who ever believed that what one wanted was more important than what other people did not want. From the bank awhile, in the warm summer stillness, she watched the water-lily plants and willow leaves, the fishes rising, sniffed the scent of grass and meadow-sweet, wondering how she could force everybody to be happy. John and Fleur, two little lame ducks, charming, callow, yellow little ducks. A great pity. Surely something could be done. One must not take such situations lying down. She walked on and reached the station, hot and cross. That evening, faithful to the impulse toward direct action which made many people avoid her, she said to her father: "Dad, I have been down to see young Fleur. I think she's very attractive. It is no good hiding our heads under our wings, is it?" The startled Jolyon set down his barley water and began crumbling his bread. "It is what you appear to be doing," he said. "Do you realize whose daughter she is? Can't the dead past bury its dead?" Jolyon rose. "Certain things can never be buried." "I disagree," said June. "It is that which stands in the way of all happiness and progress. You don't understand the age, Dad. It's got no use for outgrown things. Why do you think it matters so terribly that John should know about his mother? Who pays any attention to that sort of thing now? The marriage laws are just as they were when Soames and Irene couldn't get a divorce, and you had to come in. We have moved, and they haven't, so nobody cares. Marriage without a decent chance of relief is only a sort of slave-owning. People ought not to own each other. Everybody sees that now. If Irene broke such laws, what does it matter?" "It is not for me to disagree there," said Jolyon, "but that is all quite beside the mark. This is a matter of human feeling." "Of course it is," cried June, "the human feeling of those two young things." "My dear," said Jolyon with gentle exasperation, "you are talking nonsense." "I am not. If they prove to be really fond of each other, why should they be made unhappy because of the past?" "You have not lived that past. I have, through the feelings of my wife, through my own nerves and my imagination, as only one who is devoted can." June too rose and began to wonder restlessly. "If," she said suddenly, "she were the daughter of Philip Bosinney, I could understand you better. Irene loved him, she never loved Soames." Jolyon uttered a deep sound, the sort of noise an Italian peasant woman utters to her mule. His heart had begun beating furiously, but he paid no attention to it, quite carried away by his feelings. "That shows how little you understand. Neither I nor Jon, if I know him, would mind a love past. It is the brutality of a union without love. This girl is the daughter of the man who once owned Jon's mother as a negro slave was owned. You can't lay that ghost. Don't try to, June. It is asking us to see Jon joined to the flesh and blood of the man who possessed Jon's mother against her will. It is no good mincing words. I want it clear once for all. And now I mustn't talk any more, or I shall have to sit up with this all night." And putting his hand over his heart, Jolyon turned his back on his daughter, and stood looking at the river Thames. June, who by nature never saw a hornet's nest until she had put her head into it, was seriously alarmed. She came and slipped her arms through his, not convinced that he was right, and she herself wrong, because that was not natural to her. She was yet profoundly impressed by the obvious fact that the subject was very bad for him. She rubbed her cheek against his shoulder and said nothing. After taking her elderly cousin across, Fleur did not land at once, but pulled in among the reeds into the sunshine. The peaceful beauty of the afternoon seduced for a little one not much given to the vague and poetic. In the field beyond the bank where her skiff lay up, a machine drawn by a grey horse was turning an early field of hay. She watched the grass cascading over and behind the light wheels with fascination. It looked so cool and fresh. The click and swish blended with the rustle of the willows and the poplars, and the cooing of a wood pigeon in a true river song. Alongside, in the deep green water, weeds like yellow snakes were wreathing and nosing with the current. Pied cattle on the farther side stood in the shade, lazily swishing their tails. It was an afternoon to dream. And she took out Jon's letters, not flowery effusions, but haunted in their recital of things seen and done by a longing very agreeable to her, and all ending "Your devoted J." Fleur was not sentimental. Her desires were ever concrete and concentrated. But what poetry there was in the daughter of Soames and Annette had certainly in those weeks of waiting gathered round her memories of Jon. They all belonged to grass and blossom, flowers and running water. She enjoyed him in the sense absorbed by her crinkling nose. The stars could persuade her that she was standing beside him in the centre of the map of Spain.